Enshrouded's latest update, Thralls of Twilight, brings a massive overhaul to the shrouded areas in the game, with new enemies, tons of new locations to discover, and an entirely new system for upgrading and customizing your weapons. Keen Games have kindly asked me to walk you through what you can expect from this newest update, so grab a cuppa. There's a lot of good stuff in here. And if you haven't already, make sure to grab Enshrouded for you or your friends at the link in the description below. Where better to start off than with one of the central themes of Thralls of Twilight, nighttime. And there's now a lot more risks and rewards to be had once the sun sets on Embervale. As well as adding more shroud enemies to spawn at night, enemy groups will now roam around on patrol, and drop more valuable crafting resources when defeated. If you come across one of these nighttime scavenger patrols, you'll notice that the Hound now has its own little backpack full of goodies which you should make sure to check for loot. While you're walking around at night, keep a lookout for the 7 new Nocturnal Plants, which can only be harvested in the dark. These night flora will allow you to craft a range of new food items, as well as create upgraded healing and mana potions that restore points over time. The update also introduces a new type of dungeon, called Night Sanctums, which can be found at over a dozen locations across the map, both inside and out of the Shroud. In order to open these doors, you'll need a spark, which you can get from flame shrines or flame sanctums, and you've guessed it, it'll also need to be nighttime. Once inside, you'll find puzzles and challenges similar to those in the ancient spires. Here you can pick up some unique weapons and armor sets, or follow the trail of the explorer Darya. Another major feature of the Thralls of Twilight is the brand new weapon upgrading system. You'll notice how many of the rare and legendary weapons you find will now come with a special upgrade slot. Inside this slot you can insert a gem, which is a new item type that can be dropped from elite enemies. These gems can give your weapon unique effects and powerful buffs, like this one, which turns you into a meteor when gliding. To upgrade your weapon, you'll need to take your chosen gem to one of the new gem forges, found in the Shroud and also inside some of the Night Sanctums. To use the gem forge, you'll also need a new resource, Archaic Essence, which you can collect from these glowy mushrooms and weird eye monsters. The best place to look for this new resource is inside the new Shroud lairs. Just be careful, these lairs are crawling with high-level enemies and are pretty extensive, easy to get a bit turned around in. And a little tip, look out for these enemy spawners that you can find both in and out of these lairs. Destroying them will stop new mobs spawning in, and often lead you to rooms with a decent amount of Archaic Essence, and sometimes other secrets. This Archaic Essence comes in 5 different levels, depending on the region you collect it from. If you've got spare or duplicate gems that you don't plan on using, you can break them down into more Archaic Essence. Gem forges can also be used to upgrade gems, boosting their effects and making them even more powerful, but you'll have to pay attention to the maximum gem level of the forge, as you won't be able to upgrade gems past this point. Once you've picked the weapon and the gem that you want to combine, just click Insert at the forge. If you change your mind, you can easily swap out the embedded gems for a small amount of essence, letting you reuse them in other weapons. And you can use this new system to create some pretty cool weapon combinations, with over 20 different gems to experiment with. But that's not the only new change to how we upgrade weapons in the game. The rune system has also been expanded with a new legendary tier, designed to unlock later weapon perks. I need legendary runes now? Unlike regular runes, you can't get these legendary runes by dismantling weapons, only by defeating elite fell mobs. But at least to make farming these legendary runes a bit easier, new spots within the Shroud now allow you to summon these elite enemies on demand. All you need to do is offer up a Shroud Core, which you can craft at the Alchemist, or loot from fell mini-bosses. But beyond the Shroud lairs and gem forges and Night Sanctums, there are also plenty of other new and unique points of interest to discover and explore, both in and outside the Shroud. And of course, with these new locations comes new lore, like the Maelstrom construction site, south of Pikemead's Reach, which seems to maybe be the early stages of an abandoned elixir well. Notes left behind detail how the workers slowly began to succumb to the Shroud, haunted by visions of a spiral, which I assume will become important later on. But aside from these new lore notes, I've really been loving how many of these new locations really add to the storytelling and world building of Embervale. Like these windmills that you can find dotted around Revelwood, once used to distill elixir from nearby wells, or Vorgoth's banners that you can now find planted in the Nomad Highlands, a sign that the Northern Army continued on into this region after taking Pikemead's Reach. If you want a full breakdown of Enshrouded's lore so far, I really recommend checking out this video I made on the subject. Back into the Shroud now with the 4 new and terrifying fell enemies introduced with this update, which you'll begin to encounter once you reach the Nomad Highlands. First off are the Shroud Flayers, strange tentacle monsters that have a pretty small attack range, until they eventually learn how to come to you. Weirdly, you can also bring home their seeds and plant them at your base. Each to their own, I guess. Then there are the Shroud Depth Dwellers, massive floating jellyfish that shoot out these lightning tadpole projectiles at you. Alone, they're pretty manageable, but the smaller Depth Dwellers will often appear in groups, which can actually become a lot more challenging. Most terrifying of all are the new Shroud Stalkers, with their super fast lunge attack. And lastly, the Fell Critter Queen, which so far I've only found lurking deep within the late game Shroud layers. And as a little bit of a bonus, since I don't actually think it's alive, those of you who have made it to the Albanese summits, keep an eye out for these new Shroud Slimes. If you're just standing around enjoying the view, this thing will creep up and burn you. Each of these 4 new enemies will drop unique resources to make specific items and consumables. So if you're after something in particular, you'll need to track down the right creature. And while you're out hunting, it's hard not to notice how incredible Embervale is looking. The Enshrouded zones now have far more visual variety, and the Shroud Mist itself has been reworked to look a lot more like layered clouds. And these visual improvements aren't just limited to the Shroud. Just look how good the lighting changes are. For those of you who have already reached the Nomad Highlands and Kindle Waste regions, you'll notice that the terrain and landscape have been significantly reworked. The Nomad Highlands have been transformed into grassy plains, with new trees, bushes, caves, while the Kindle Waste is still very deserty, but has a lot more variation than before, with these lovely high sand dunes. Existing caves and underground locations in both of these regions have also been given significant visual improvements, making all of these different locations feel a lot more unique to explore. Something I also really appreciate is that I'm finding a lot more ways to move between up on the steppe and down in the Shroud, which makes navigating around these regions a lot easier. One of the more intriguing new features, especially given all the lore around the Shroud infection, is the introduction of a Shroud Curse. This is a lingering debuff that you have a very small chance of catching each time you're hit by a fell enemy. If you're cursed, the duration of time that you can spend in the Shroud is significantly reduced, making exploring these regions a lot more risky. This curse can only be remedied by crafting the new Curse Cure, which is created from these strange night mushrooms that appear to grow out of the bodies of fallen fell, outside of the Shroud. This update also brings us a brand new NPC to wake from their slumber, Elio the Barber. Once summoned to your base and given a sheltered bed, Elio will enable you to completely change the appearance of your character. He will also send you out on quests to search for new pigments, allowing you to unlock new hair colours, including shades of red and blue. But that's not the only new way you can change up your look. We also have 3 new Shroud-themed Armorsets available to craft, one for each warrior, ranger and mage. And if you're not a fan of the default colouring, most Armorsets in the game can now be altered at the new colouring station. There are dozens of different colour palettes to choose from, which you can either find out in the world or craft at the colouring station. For magic users, this new update adds 2 new staff spells, a heal beam channel, which can be used to heal targets up to 20 meters away, and a shroud beam channel, which is best used against non-fell enemies. Or for those of you that prefer an archer build, like myself, there's now a new tameable creature in the Kindle Waste, the round-billed sailor, which will come in handy for all of your arrow needs, producing a regular supply of feathers when fed and sheltered. Finally, if your weapon breaks without an anvil in sight, you can now craft repair kits at the Hunter, allowing you to fix up your gear on the go. And that's about it. So what is your favourite new addition to the game? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Get Enshrouded today at the link in the description below, and a massive thanks to Keen Games for sponsoring today's video.